Forget the fairy tales about gentle mermaids, the singing ones, the beautiful ones, the stories designed to make the ocean feel friendly. What you're about to see isn't legend, it isn't art, and it definitely isn't fantasy. These are leaked camera files, raw, unedited, and deeply unsettling. Before we go any further, understand this. Nothing in this footage was meant to be seen by the public. If mermaids exist, they were never meant to be beautiful. They were never meant to comfort us. They were meant to survive. This first story begins far from shore, far from rescue, far from witnesses. A midnight fishing run in Atlantic waters. No cameras prepared, no setup. Just working men doing what they've done for generations. Out there, the ocean doesn't feel alive. It feels endless. That's why what happened next broke something in every man on board. When the net came up, the crew froze. Not because it was heavy, not because it was tangled, but because it was moving. This wasn't fish. It wasn't debris. It wasn't something you could explain away. It was a mermaid. And before you dismiss that word, before your brain reaches for logic, look closer. Look at the body. The proportions aren't cartoonish. They aren't exaggerated. They're wrong in a much more disturbing way. The upper body is human, not similar to. Human. The skin is pale, bloated, waterlogged from pressure and depth. This isn't makeup. This is what happens to flesh that spends too long below the surface. Now look at the tail. Really look at it. That muscle density, that thickness, that violent power. It doesn't belong to any known marine animal. Not a shark, not a whale, not even something undiscovered but natural. Every time the tail moves, the deck reacts. Metal vibrates. Ropes strain. This isn't thrashing. This is resistance. Now look at the face. This is where most people stop breathing. The features are unmistakably human. Eyes, nose, mouth. But the expression isn't rage. It isn't animal aggression. It's terror. This is the face of something that understands what's happening to it. And that detail changes everything. Because panic is instinct. Fear is awareness. The mermaid reacts when the net tightens. She pulls away from hands. She twists her body with intent. This isn't random movement. This is problem solving under stress. Every movement sends vibrations through the deck. You can see the crew stepping back. Not because they're ordered to, but because something in their instincts is screaming at them. Humans recognize intelligence, even when we don't want to. And that's when the footage becomes dangerous. Because once intelligence is established, this stops being a monster video. It becomes evidence. When this footage leaked, millions argued. Some said prop, some said AI, some said hoax. But no one could explain the way the mermaid reacts to restraint. The ocean didn't confirm it. It didn't deny it. It stayed silent. And silence has always been the ocean's favorite answer.
The next footage comes from colder waters. The ocean changes as you move north. The color drains. The sound hardens.
The next footage doesn't come from warm waters. It comes from a place sailors avoid. They call it the graveyard of the Atlantic. A region where ships disappear, where compasses misbehave, and where storms seem to rise without warning. This is where the second mermaid appears. At first glance, the footage looks familiar. A fishing vessel, a heavy net, men working on instinct. But then you notice the scale. This mermaid is bigger, not just longer, heavier, denser. Her upper body is human in shape, but stretched in a way that feels unnatural, as if evolution pulled her taller, stronger, without concern for beauty. The skin is taut, pulled tight over powerful muscle. Heavy folds roll and compress as she moves. This isn't decay. This isn't damage. This is what strength looks like when it evolves under pressure. Now look at the head, or rather, try to. Her face is partially hidden, covered by thick green strands, hair, or seaweed. And that detail matters, because seaweed doesn't cling unless something stays still long enough for it to grow, which means this mermaid has spent time close to the ocean floor. Time measured in years, not minutes. Then there's the tail. Unlike the first mermaid, this one doesn't thrash wildly. It strains. The scales shimmer purple and blue, catching light even in the cold darkness. Each movement stretches the net tighter. You can see the ropes biting into her body, fibers screaming under pressure. This isn't a struggle to escape. This is containment failing. The crew keeps their distance, not because they're told to, but because proximity feels dangerous. Something about her presence demands space. And then comes the moment that shifts the tone entirely. The mermaid stops moving. Not because she's exhausted, not because she's weak. She goes still. Her chest rises, slow, controlled. Her head tilts, as if listening. That's when the footage becomes uncomfortable, because predators panic. Prey panics, but strategists pause. Old maritime journals describe encounters like this, not with mermaids, but with watchers. Creatures believed to observe ships before storms, before sinkings. Sailors used to believe these beings weren't monsters, they were warnings. And standing there, watching this massive mermaid restrained, that belief doesn't feel foolish anymore. What if this isn't an accident? What if she wasn't caught, but intercepted? Pulled from a depth humans were never meant to reach. The ocean has always punished arrogance. Ships that sail too far, nets that drag too deep. Maybe this mermaid isn't proof of discovery. Maybe she's proof we crossed a line. The footage cuts shortly after. No escape, no explanation.
Just cold water, tight nets, and a presence too large to feel accidental. And once again, the ocean stays silent.
What you're about to see next wasn't caught. It wasn't treated. It was returned. Sometimes, the ocean doesn't need us to go looking. It decides to come to us. No nets, no engines, no human interference. Just land, and whatever the tide is willing to give back. This story doesn't begin on a boat. It begins in silence. Early morning, Greenland's coastline. Temperatures well below freezing. A fisherman steps outside his home, expecting nothing more than another empty, brutal day. What he sees on the sand stops him cold. At first, it doesn't even look real. Just an uneven shape beneath drifting sand. Something large. Too large to be driftwood. The tide moves. The sand shifts. And that's when the outline appears. A body. But not the kind the mind is prepared for. What lies on the shore isn't human. And it isn't an animal. It's a mermaid. Not posed, not arranged, not displayed. Just left there. The upper body is human in structure. Arms, torso, hands half buried in sand. But the skin tells a different story. It's yellow-white, peeling, softened by prolonged exposure to salt water. This isn't theatrical decay. This is biological breakdown. the kind that only happens after a very long time underwater. Long, tangled hair clings to the body, frozen with sand and seaweed. No styling, no symmetry, just neglect. And then your eyes move lower. The tail stretches across the beach. Massive, heavy, pale gold in color. Not shiny, not decorative, dull, weathered, torn. The tears aren't clean. They aren't cuts. They're stress fractures. Damage caused by force, pressure, or impact. Something happened to this mermaid long before she reached the shore. And that's what makes this footage so disturbing. Because nothing about this looks intentional. No signs of staging, no dramatic framing. Just a body that shouldn't exist in a place it doesn't belong. The fisherman records everything. His breathing audible. Hands shaking slightly. There's no excitement in his voice. No triumph. Only confusion. He circles the mermaid slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might wake up. And that fear is important. Because if this were a sculpture, curiosity would replace fear. But fear remains. Fear doesn't come from disbelief. It comes from recognition. Some claim it's fake, a prop, an advanced hoax. But hoaxes don't rot. They don't peel. They don't smell. And they don't carry the weight of something once alive. Marine biologists who reviewed the footage refused to comment on record. That silence speaks louder than denial. The cold preserved her, but not perfectly, which suggests something terrifying. This mermaid didn't die recently. She died at sea, and the ocean held on to her until it decided we were ready to see the result. Ask yourself this: why here? Why not sink her? Why not tear her apart? Why place her gently on the shore where a human would find her? The ocean doesn't do things randomly. Currents are precise. Tides are intentional. If this mermaid reached land, it was allowed. Some legends say the sea returns its dead as warnings. Not to scare us, but to remind us. Remind us that we don't own the depths. We only trespass in them. The footage ends quietly. No jump scares, no conclusion.
Just a body on the sand, cold wind, and unanswered questions. If this mermaid is real, then something powerful enough to kill her is still out there, and it didn't come ashore.
The next footage comes from warmer water, clearer seas. Routes traveled every day by humans who believe the ocean is familiar. The Mediterranean. This was meant to be routine, a standard net retrieval. Daylight, calm water. No one was prepared for what came up with the net. At first, the crew thought they had snagged rock, then debris. But the resistance felt wrong. Too sudden, too controlled.
And then the surface broke. Not with panic, but with intent.
The mermaid came up fast, violent, focused. This wasn't fear. This was reaction. Look at the skin. Slick. Darkened. Almost hardened. Unlike the others, there's no hesitation here. No confusion. The face is stretched. The jaw opens wider than human anatomy allows. And the eyes don't dart. They lock. Predators don't flail. They calculate. The net tightens. And that's when everything changes. She doesn't pull away. She pulls down. Watch the tail. The motion isn't random. It's leverage. Every movement targets balance, weight, control. For the first time in any of these recordings, humans are no longer in control. Slow this down, frame by frame. One misstep, one loose grip, 1 second longer, and someone would have gone overboard, into water where this thing is no longer trapped. Then it happens. The net tears. Not cleanly. Violently. The mermaid doesn't hesitate. Doesn't look back. She disappears straight down. No blood. No debris. No body returned. Just silence. The crew stops filming. Not because the footage is finished, but because their hands are shaking. No one speaks. No one laughs. No one tries to explain what they just saw. Because explaining it would mean admitting something fought its way free. Until now, every mermaid had been restrained, caught, or already dead. This one escaped. Which means whatever lives beneath us can learn.
And if it can learn, then it can adapt. After this incident, footage stops leaking. Reports disappear until one final recording surfaces. Not of panic, not of escape, but of restraint. And what's being held this time doesn't look organic at all.
You've seen bodies returned. You've seen creatures resist. You've seen them escape. But what you're about to hear about next doesn't fit into any category we've shown so far. Because this one wasn't pale, it wasn't decaying, and it wasn't trying to flee. It was restrained. The footage surfaced without a location, no coastline, no coordinates, no names. Just a deck, harsh lights, and something that should not have been able to move the way it did. At first glance, it looks unreal, almost artificial, because every time the tail swings, the entire deck reacts. Metal rattles, wood shudders, ropes snap tight. This isn't thrashing, it's controlled power. Watch closely. The tail doesn't flail randomly. It coils, it twists, it strikes where resistance is weakest. That's not instinct, that's calculation. The men shout. One nearly loses balance. Another shifts position to avoid being crushed. This thing knows how much force it's using, and it's holding back. Look at the face, still expressive. But there's no panic here. There's rage, or focus, as if it's deciding whether restraint is temporary or unnecessary. If this is fake, then someone understood biomechanics, material science, and fear psychology perfectly. If it's real, then something evolved beneath the surface that doesn't need to hide. Something that doesn't rot easily, doesn't tear easily, and doesn't break easily. Ask yourself this: why would an ocean creature need armor? Not against predators, against us. We trawl deeper every year, drill further, dump more, extract more, and we assume nothing down there adapts. Maybe that assumption is the mistake, because everything you've seen so far follows a pattern. First, they're caught. Then, they resist. Then, they escape. Then, they wash back, broken. And now, they come prepared.
No coordinates, no confirmation, no follow-up footage, just this moment, this struggle, this unanswered question? Was it restrained long enough to study, or did it eventually break free?
And if it did, where would something like that go after learning how weak we really are?
If these videos are fake, then we've entered an age where fiction is indistinguishable from reality, and that should scare you. But if even one of them is real, then the ocean isn't hiding secrets. It's observing, waiting, and deciding when we've gone too far.
Because the scariest thought isn't that we found them, it's that they noticed us first.